we don't need to start like pretend like we didn't have. All right, we're back. Please, thank you for if you stuck around.
I
Thank
hope
you.
Nick finds us.
Yeah, Nick, come back. We
Come
need
back,
you.
Nick.
We're here without Alex Akita still. I think I have a co-host typically, and I think he's hacked into the mainframe and he's ruining the podcast because he can't be here
Oh yeah,
to be on it.
He's sabotaging me to make sure that I don't become the permanent co-host.
That's right. That's right.
I knew it.
He has kids also. That's the reason he's not here. Is he has a sick kid. You still one kid, or you pop a second kid out?
Still one. She's 3 years old now.
Yeah, so I guess it would have been because you had the kid. She must have been pretty young when we worked together, and
yeah, and you know what's crazy about that is like when I'm trying to think of like recording a new album, it's really hard to figure out like what's new. Because when I re-recorded it with you, I kind of added a few things just to keep myself excited about it. So I did like a few new jokes on there. Well, new at the time. And so now I'm like, what's been recorded? It's very hard for me to keep it straight in my mind. So I have to go back and listen to our recording, what we did, to figure out what's actually new. Because I listened to the album that's on like iTunes and stuff. That's not technically, there has been things recorded since then. So I screwed myself that way, but it was all
I'm a dork with that kind of stuff. I have a spreadsheet that I call joke inventory, and like I put a thing if it's been recorded. Yeah, it's a very dorky thing. But I did like a no frills recording of a bunch of like kid material that was just like, when you're doing stuff that's like dated in a way where you're like, I can't be the guy that's doing a joke about having a baby at home and there's like a 17-year-old in my house. You know what I mean? Like I can't be still doing that same joke about bringing my daughter home.
Yes.
But there is a thing too where you're like, that's actually what made me think I could record a special is I didn't think I had that much new stuff. And then I'm like, oh wait, I have like everything I'm doing is since everything I was doing basically I had written since my daughter was born. Outside of there was like a handful of like short jokes in there, but like almost all the stuff was since she had been born. I was like, oh, well, that's a good like line of demarcation on where.
That's the best part about. I think that's like half the reason to do these specials or albums or whatever. It's like you need a yardstick. You just need like a time to start over or a time to go. Okay, that's that. Move on. Otherwise, it just all kind of blends in and you have it forever. Some jokes are like that. I mean. Sometimes you're desperate and you're doing enough like some weird corporate thing and you got to pull like from way back some bit that you haven't done in like 8 or 9 years, but for the most part you want to be refreshing and I'm not like these guys who do it every year or whatever, but like every like for me like 3 to 4 years. Like I feel like now I'm getting closer. The problem is it's not just like having enough material, it's having an opener and a closer.
Right.
That's the hardest part. Like I got, getting like 50 new minutes is not like the Herculean feat. It's like getting 50 new minutes and having an opener and a closer worthy of a show.
Yeah.
That's also new. Like that's the hardest part, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about like if people watch this special and they're like, we want to go see him. I don't want it to be like, oh, I guess all the good stuff was on the special. So like it sucks. That
yeah,
like,
no, I know. It's harder for, I mean, there is a benefit from like, I don't know. I'll just talk about myself, but like at my level, where a lot of the times I'm doing gigs and people are there because they're there to see comedy, not necessarily like to see me, And so you don't have a lot of that pressure to like have like a bunch of new shit that no one's seen before that's never been on the internet. However, for the people who do come and see me, you want that group to grow. And it's not going to if they come and see you and it's the same stuff they saw, the year before. So I'm always like, if they come see me and more than half of it's different, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then whatever the last time they saw me, like if more than half of it's different, if they saw me, because they're not going to probably see you like every time you're in town.
Sure.
But hopefully they would. But
yeah, and they're not going to remember every joke as well as you do.
No, and sometimes they're mad when they don't hear the joke that they like. Do you ever have that where they're like, "Oh, you don't do that joke"? Like I told all my friends this joke.
Yeah.
And then I brought them to see you and you didn't do it, and they're like pissed off. Like so, you get that sometimes too. So I always think like if more than half of it is new, then you're doing fine.
Yeah. Because I can kind of muscle through a joke that sucks now and like get a couple laughs out of it, but it's like, yeah, it sucks that like all the stuff that was working great is now, there's like I have like 10 or 15 minutes that are not recorded that are like fine, and then I'm like, but none of them are probably closers like you said. But we can stop
the hard part.
We can stop the behind baseball comedy talk, and I want to talk. You grew up in Seattle. Were you a Mariners, Seahawks, Sonics?
Yeah,
fan.
Nailed it.
So
all three.
Like Ken Griffey Jr. is probably on your wall as a kid, I imagine.
Absolutely.
How old are you, Andrew?
I'm 39.
Okay, so yeah, I'm 38. So
yeah, so exactly that. Everything you said. Those Mariner teams like 94, 95, 96 were like the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
Same thing with those Sonics, with Peyton and Kemp. Very, very and then the Seahawks I got into as well. Like, so probably when I really became a Seahawks fan was Holmgren's first season, and that's when me and my buddy got season tickets when they're at Husky Stadium. Mm-hmm. And they were like dirt cheap, and so we were doing but then that stayed the same too. So like the Sonics left. I've never picked up a new NBA team.
Same.
And then the Kraken come and the Sounders are. It's like I can't get into it. It's like I think it has to be from your youth.
Yeah,
I don't know how. Sometimes do you ever see people? They're like, I'm gonna be a this fan. Like, oh, I'm going to be they pick like these Premier League teams or whatever in England. Like, oh, I'm going to be an Arsenal fan. I was like, how do you do that? I can't just decide. First of all, I got so much time I'm wasting on the Seahawks, especially, but then also the Mariners, which is, for better or worse.
I grew up I liked all sports, and baseball was my favorite sport growing up. But if you like put a gun to my head, and that was what you needed out of me when you put a gun to my head, you went through all that effort to put a gun to my head, and the question you had was, "What's your favorite sports franchise?" And if you lie, by the way, Nick's now giving more commentary.
I know. What the fuck, man? We lost Nick into the mic.
Yeah,
that is broadcaster 101.
If you put a gun to my head, I think I'm a bigger Seahawks fan than a Mariners fan now. I've come to grips with that because, first off, as a comic, it's way easier. There's one game a week. It's always on the same day. It's almost never at the time of a show unless it's like a Monday or a like Sunday night game. And even then, it's like very often you're not gonna. I can watch it. It's hard to watch baseball because it's on exactly during comedy hours. And there's so many games.
Yeah. Like,
did you almost say wait till you have a kid to me?
No. I was gonna say you're exactly right because with fantasy too. Like I'm in a fantasy basketball league, and it's impossible. Yeah. And I've only stayed in it because it's Comedy Magic Club in LA. It's like a good comedy club. Like, okay,
because you want to get booked.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it.
That's why I'm in fantasy football leagues. I'm in fantasy football
every year. I pay this $20 shitty fee, and I know I'm not going to keep up, and I know I'm going to get trounced. But it's just like, well, when I go to LA, I want to do spots, so I'll keep this league. But yeah, football's the best because of that, and they're ruining that though, because now there's games like Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, which I love. Secretly, I love because I just love football. I watch it all the time. But it really does fuck with your whole, because you can give that speech to your family. Like, hey, it's just Sunday. I'm going to be watching TV all day Sunday. I know it sucks. It's football season, but this is what my one vice in life. But now
have you made any attempts to make your daughter a sports fan?
Yeah. I mean, so she's just now at the age where I'm like, she really does watch stuff with a more critical eye. Like, you don't just
Sure.
sit her in front of like any cartoon or whatever. Like, she's got certain movies she likes, she's got certain shows she likes, certain shows she doesn't like. And like, I tried to get her to watch football, and she liked the excitement of it. We'd call them football guys when she was really small. I was like, hey, the football guys are on, so it's football guys. And because I would go ape shit, at certain points, and I try to only go ape shit about good stuff. That's the thing when you
Yeah.
have kids, like you probably know, you can't punch a wall anymore. You can't be that kind of. You cannot be that
I
kind of
know.
maniac in front of your kids. Like, it's so bad to show them that. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to just only have those outbursts for like the good parts, and just internalize those negative moments, and like basically punch myself in the heart
just
inside.
just silently punch yourself in the
Yeah,
face.
until
Yeah.
it turns into like heart disease or something.
Yeah,
But like,
my daughter, I'm like I've tried when she was really young, she would watch football really intently, but it was just like cuz she had no point of reference, she had nothing. She had never experienced a TV show that she liked. So it was like
that's
the football would be on TV and she'd just be like glued to it
amazing.
with no understanding, but she's like 1.5 years old or something like that. And now she's like she like does not interested in watching, and then every time a black
Oh
dude comes
no.
on TV she goes, is that DK Metcalf? Because she has a DK Metcalf jersey and she thinks Kevin Hart's DK Metcalf. She's
Oh my
like,
god.
and it's like she wants to care but she just doesn't like the sport at all. And my one bit of like, I mean, first off, I have a second chance, we have another kid, so I could try to do it differently with that one and try to con her into being a sports fan also. But my one bit of solace that I've taken is I didn't really get into football until probably I was like 8 or 9 years old, because it is more complicated. Explaining what a down is to a 4-year-old is really difficult. You're like,
No.
they get to take
I
turns, but if they don't go far enough, they don't. Yeah.
100% agree. When I was a kid, I remember I did not like it, especially when it was my this was I would have been older than my daughter is now, but I didn't like it, and I remember I'd have to make like a deal with my brother. My older brother wanted to watch football, and I would like go, okay, because you know how like Looney Tunes, they would break it up into like like 3 segments was each episode. So it's like I would get to watch one Looney Tune segment, and then we'd flip over and watch football. Like that was like the deal. But I remember thinking like they're just pushing each other around. Like they just run into each other. Nothing happens. Because especially back then, like people were running the ball like 70, 80% of the time. So they're just going to run into each other. A guy's going to fall down. Nothing really happened.
Yeah.
It was very boring to me. But
Yeah,
baseball
that's
and
true.
basketball were more exciting. And then now I'm just obsessed with football. And that happened at the Holmgren years, I'd say, like, is where it really flipped for me.
Yeah, I remember the Dennis Erickson years pretty close, like pretty well. Still angry. I've heard some stuff that the Vinny Testaverde thing wouldn't have led to the Seahawks. I'm never gonna give it up though. I'm always gonna
Wait,
believe
is that
it.
not true? Because I remember thinking, so if that had been a touchdown, right, or like
Not a touchdown. If it had been,
not a
yeah,
touchdown, because it was his helmet. The ref thought he saw the ball, but it
yeah.
was his helmet. We would have gone to the playoffs, right?
That's what
Or is
I
that
thought,
wrong?
but I read a thing. There's two things I've read that I don't think I believe can possibly be true, and one of them is that, and the other one is that if Ross Perot didn't run in 1992, and to me it's like, so like that dude, because we're about to see another election like this, by the way, where a third party candidate gets a huge chunk of the
Right,
vote,
right.
and it's like the Ross Perot thing. You're like, he definitely affected the outcome of a bunch of states. Because Clinton like destroyed Bush, and that in the Electoral College, and then, but yeah, same thing with the Testaverde thing. I'll just go to my grave. I'm never gonna look into it again. I've just been told that it doesn't by some. I'm like read it somewhere or something like that, but I'll never believe it. I'm never gonna give it any credence. And but yeah, that like that
That's
play
the
basically
first-
brought
that's
instant
the first-
replay.
That's the first ever Ross Perot, Vinny Testaverde analogy, I think.
That's actually, if they ran together, I'd vote for him this election
Yeah,
cycle.
that'd be a good
That's-
ticket.
I think Perot's younger than Biden and Trump, it turns out, and he's been dead for 40 years probably. So,
Probably.
do you remember Ross Perot was like a big, like he'd be on cartoons? By the way, this is like an aside that people might not like. Animaniacs made 3 new seasons in 2020, and I've been showing them to my daughter. And if you're if you're, I don't know what kind of TV consumption you allow your daughter, but these are first off, Animaniacs, the jokes are fucking insane. I forgot how it's just
Really?
joke after joke after joke.
Yeah,
after joke.
I remember watching them. I didn't know they made new ones.
Yeah, and it's like their jokes are like they take big swings. Like there are some edgy jokes, but they're so far above the kid's head that my daughter's like never even turned and been like, "What does this mean?" It's really good, but like Perot, I'm sure had like multiple Animaniacs episodes. He's like a perfect Animaniacs.
Yeah. Well, he was very
cartoon.
cartoony. His voice was very cartoony. His look, his ears, the whole thing. He was like a little cartoon character.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time.
Yeah. All right. I want to get into some like current sports topics if you're all right with that.
Love it.
I do. Before we do that, I do want to acknowledge, because we're in a historic week. Our country is facing a lot of problems right now, and we're very divided. And I think an event happened that I'm hoping will unite us against like the evil our country is facing and some of the most horrible things our country is facing. And I try not to get political on this podcast. We did early, and I like on occasion, and it would be like, very divisive and people hated it. And it's just we're in this very historic moment, and things like this could really shatter our country. And I think it's just really important that we don't allow something like this to shatter our country. And I want to watch the national anthem with you. Did you know Ingrid Andress before this? Are you familiar with this?
I was not
singer?
before. I was not before.
So she is a country singer, apparently. I actually listened to a little bit of country, and I'm not familiar with her. I want to tell you, I started seeing this anthem talked about on Twitter/X, and I was like, there's no way it's going to be as bad. Have you seen it? Have you actually listened to it?
I just clips, but not from beginning to end.
Because I want to do it with you, and I want to tell you, I want you raise your hand when you think it gets bad. Because I think I'm going to raise my hand later than when you think it gets bad. Okay, we'll start it. Ingrid Andress, by the way, 4-time Grammy winner. This is also how I know I'm old. Is I'm like, yeah, I didn't know who this lady was, and she's like supposedly one of the best singers in the world. I think she might have gone down in the rankings recently, but
by the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Also, hopefully this doesn't just keep playing over and over and over again. That's the risk. We have to quit the podcast.
It's really ballsy of you to play music again.
Now to perform the national anthem, please welcome 4-time Grammy-nominated country singer-songwriter Ingrid Andress.
Obviously not bad yet.
No,
she's feeling it.
Oh, say can you see?
That's bad.
You're already there? No.
Yeah. She fucked up the first 2 notes.
Okay,
this is the problem.
I have no musical ability. At this point, I'm like, this is like a maybe like kind of gritty, kind of. I want you to see how far in.
I want to show basic notes.
I want to show you how far into this it took for me to go, this is actually bad, because you might hate me as a person when we find out. It's still good to me. To me, this is like, it's a little flinty. It's like there's like some soul in it right now. Nope, not there yet. Still not there. I'm going, this is still an average national anthem at this point. Now, I think this feels like a style choice, not a fuck up to me.
That's okay. It's all right.
Dude, we got a little iffy. We got like to the. I'm still not there.
This guy knows.
Nope.
There.
Yeah, there we go. That's where.
Okay.
Is that how? Did I? Yeah, I 53 seconds it took me to recognize what many are calling the worst anthem rendition in the history of America, I think.
It's not the worst, because there's Roseanne.
But so the thing about Roseanne is Roseanne was trying to be funny. It was bad, but it was trying to be funny. Who's the dude? Jesse
Carl Lewis.
Carl Lewis.
When he forgot the words, or somebody. literally when you forget the words. I mean, that's
Yeah.
worse. At least if you're just fucking it up. Isn't she okay? So maybe I got this wrong, but didn't she like come out the next day and say I got to go to rehab?
Yeah. Yes. Let me. I had it before we started trying to diagnose our. I'm gonna pull this up.
So she was just drunk.
Right,
or
exactly.
high or something.
That's what she said. She was drunk, and I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt that she was drunk. But how have you ever done a comedy show that went so badly that you were like, I need to check myself into rehab right now?
No, but I'm not gonna bullshit y'all. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into a facility today. But that's what's hilarious to me. It's like maybe she wasn't drunk.
Sure.
And it's just like, what's more embarrassing, if I have to go to rehab, or if that was the best I could do?
Yeah. So that's also, I want to say this, based on her rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, I was not certain what genre of music this lady was from, and her name, I was like, oh, this has got to be like some like electronica singer that's normally auto-tuned or something like that. I'm sure she's got auto-tune and all that shit because all music does now. But I was not prepared for her to be a country singer. And it's also funny to, like, I'll let y'all know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. Sounds like such a, like, millennial punk-ass kid, like, cynical way.
Yeah. It sounds like she's still drunk when she's right. Like, she's, like, being sarcastic about going to rehab. Like, I don't know if it's going to take, Ingrid.
Yeah. Hope it's fun. Know. Yeah. Are you, do you drink, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you, when was the last time, do you drink when you do comedy?
Yeah.
Exclusively, just
but
hammered
not as
everything.
much. Almost much less than I used to.
Gotcha.
In fact, I drink a lot at home now. Like, I like to drink wine. That's where I'm in my wine era.
Ooh, that's nice.
You can't drink wine on stage. Like, it's just such an anti-comedy look.
You look like an aristocrat. I think you could drink it from like a mason jar.
Yeah, I was like, if you could give me a pint glass, like a PBR glass of Merlot, also is alcoholic looking.
Yeah,
but like,
if you saw a comic with a pint glass of red wine on stage, I think that's a problem. We got a problem.
That's for sure a problem. But like, I almost use comedy nights now, especially when I'm in town, like I'm doing shows in Portland.
Sure.
As like a night off from drinking. So it's easier for me to not drink, even getting the tickets or whatever. Sometimes that's torture, but like it's easier for me to not drink at shows than when I'm home and we put my daughter to bed and it's my wife and I are going to watch a show. Like that's like so like the bat signal to like pour a glass of wine. I don't know when that started, if that was COVID or before. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a couple nights off. I'm going to go to these bars, do some shows, not drink, and then freshen up for Monday and Tuesday where I'm going to get lit watching, The Bachelorette or whatever.
I think there's some practicality to that. One is like when you're at home, you don't have to drive home. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's one good part. I think also like, if you were taking comedy as a job seriously, there's an argument that I don't drink before. My rule is, until the last time I've been on stage performing, like until I'm done for the night performing, I won't have a drink. Now I used to drink like a fair amount.
Yeah.
Like arguably, I was never like slurring. That's the thing that you learn too is I can do comedy
funny.
drunk. Well, but you can do it. You can pull it off.
You can do it, but no one's actually funnier.
No, you're absolutely not funnier. But it is like 80%. I could be hammered and still be 80% of my best, but I want to be 100% of my best all the time. Yeah. And I also,
I'll have a beer. I'm like, when I'm at the comedy club, I'm like a beer guy. I've never been like a hard liquor comedy club guy.
Yeah, I think you just had a red wine acid reflux burp right there.
just a goblet of red wine. No, I don't drink any wine at comedy club. Let me be clear. Not a great wine list usually.
Yeah.
At the Funny Bone. Okay, they're not. If they've named the wine after like, Kevin Pollak, that's usually a bad sign. So. No, I'm like a beer guy. But then even like IPAs, like this is showing my age, but like I can't drink those. Like I'm down to one IPA, then I downshift to a pale ale. This is if like I'm gonna drink at a comedy club, I'll have an IPA at the first show, pale ale at the second show, and then if we're getting drunk after, just Bud Light or whatever the cool guy equivalent they might have to Bud Light, but that's it.
Yeah, so that's
the only way I can get drunk on beer anymore. If I do 3 IPAs, then the next I'm just ruined the next day.
I got to tell you, I've had a lot of people our age talk to me about that specific thing recently, and every time I've been like, "You guys are pussies. I can still drink IPAs all night." And by the way, I still can.
That's incredible. That's good for you. But I got a year on you though too.
That's
year,
true.
That year is meaningful. These years add up.
I have in recent months started to realize how much worse I feel if I get drunk off IPAs. And I was like, this is a myth. You guys are stupid. And then I'll have 5, 6, 7, let's say that's where it stops every time, IPAs. And I'm like, oh yeah, I started drinking Miller Lite, which makes me feel like an absolute sellout. But I'm like, I can just drink an unlimited amount of this. I never feel drunk. And so I'm with you on that. And Nick Lindsay asked, what did he ask? He said, what about the whiskey? Do they have any Weller? And first off, I think you said you're not a hard alcohol guy at all. Weller's a great.
Well, not at the club, not a comedy.
Okay.
If I drink whiskey at the comedy, then that's dangerous. I can handle beers. So
yeah,
I do like a Manhattan or something at a nice place, or I'll drink straight whiskey sometimes. That's actually really that, and now I sound like a drunk. I'm like, well, that margaritas, a little bit of gin. That's really wine, beer. Whiskey, gin, any clear liquor.
All I really drink is a little bit of every kind of beer, red wine, a little bit of every kind of liquor. Also, I'll drink it if you mix it in as a cocktail.
White wine with fish. But other than that,
sometimes I'll take a bottle of bitters and just pour it upside down and what's your favorite whiskey based on or?
I just saw it, and I used to drink just bourbon, the Bullet,
I like Bullet
all the time. But I like Buffalo Trace. Do you ever drink Buffalo Trace?
Oh, yeah.
I drank that straight up because I was at this show. I was at a comedy show, but I gotten off stage, and I was done for the night, and I felt like a Manhattan.
I do also like how you're like, I don't drink whiskey at shows, and your first story is like, no, I drink whiskey at shows. I was drinking whiskey at a show 3 days ago, but since then I don't drink whiskey at shows. I've stopped.
Is this my intervention? Am I that chick who just sang the national anthem?
Yeah.
No, I'm drunk right now. Let me just be honest. No, I asked I was done for the night though, and this was like a fancy hotel gig show or whatever. So
sleeping in the hotel, or sorry, performing in the hotel and sleeping in the same hotel.
The ballroom.
Yeah,
the ballroom
that's the move.
Yeah, and in your room's right down the hall, so it's great. You're like, if there was ever a night to get drunk, this is it. So I was gonna get a Manhattan, but then the guy, it was like one of these bar cart pop-up bars. He's like, I can't do mixed drinks, really. I could just. It's like, oh, okay, I'll just get a whiskey on the rocks, I guess. I'll just whatever. I'll make it. And and he had Buffalo Trace, and I never drank. But man, that was pretty smooth, I thought. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm a Buffalo Trace guy.
If you can get your hands on it, it's a little more expensive than Buffalo Trace, but Eagle Rare is the same. It's owned by the same people as Buffalo Trace, and it's from the same. I think it's just aged longer. I think it's the same mash bill, but it's aged longer.
Okay.
And it's
what's it called again?
It's Eagle Rare, and then they make Blanton's also, which is a similar. It's the next step up. Yeah, and then let's get to Nick Lindsay. We're not now. It's just a whiskey podcast.
Now
apparently,
it's a whiskey talk. You look like a whiskey guy.
Owns Buffalo Trace. Do I look like one? Is that what you said?
You look like a whiskey guy.
Yeah,
you
I've
can
become
talk some
one.
Whiskey.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I used 5 years ago. You catch me, and I'd be making a real bad face when I took a drink of a whiskey neat, and now I'm 75 bottles of whiskey. I'm in a whiskey club. It's a whole problem. Oh shit! I took you off the screen instead of Nick Lindsay. I gotta get Nick Lindsay off the screen. We got too much whiskey talk here. Buffalo Trace is allocated in Washington. Best place to get it is at the grocery store because all the liquor stores sell out. There's also some, but by the way, after the podcast we can talk about it. There's some great online places where you can get around Washington and Oregon, liquor tax if you're
This
interested
is
in
straight
that.
up alcoholism talk now. Like now we're talking about
Do you
getting
think about-
around liquor laws.
Do you think about?
I went from not drinking talking about how much we don't drink.
I didn't believe it when you said it.
How do we get around liquor laws?
Yeah, I sometimes you'll be like, if you're doing a lot of comedy, you're like, oh man, I drank like 8 days straight or something like that, and then you're like, well, yeah, but it is like the job is in the bar. Like I'm at the bar.
I know. The final monster of that is turning down the free drinks.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to go, I don't need to be spending money drinking every night,
Sure.
That's easy to kind of, especially when I moved to LA and I was so broke, and that was easy to go out and not buy drinks.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were getting drink tickets, like what are you going to not use these? And now I've graduated to that where like I said, you're talking about drinking 8 nights in a row. That's like me if I don't have a show for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If I have like a week off, I'm like, oh man, I got to get back on stage because I've been drinking a lot. I do a lot of home drinking. It's harder to stay off the side. And I'm talking about like 1 or 2 glasses of wine, but like still you want to every once in a while you want to have a little break. You want to be able to say there was a night I didn't drink.
Yeah, I feel very lucky, and this is going to sound like denial, but I feel very lucky because I can pretty easily physically go a week without drinking, and I do sometimes go a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever without drinking. Sometimes just to prove it to myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I also can go like I have like again, no part of this doesn't sound like I'm just in denial. I feel like I have complete control over alcohol. Where I can go, like, I can have 5 or 6 beers and it's not like the biggest problem in the world, and I can go weeks without drinking and it's not a big deal. But I do also realize that it's like I have alcoholism in my family, so I'm like, I'm always got my eye out on it, This really does just sound like 2 people who need help.
2 people who need to go to rehab that aren't going to.
Have you been afflicted by this NCAA 2025? Are you a video game person still
No.
at 39 years old?
No. I never played it back in its heyday. I was
Got
always
you.
a Madden guy, so I don't give a shit about it.
Do you play Madden still?
I don't play Madden anymore.
Okay.
I'm really down. Like video games, Madden lost me like probably 8 or 9 years ago. I don't
Okay.
know. But I would be curious to ask these people who love NCAA football, like, is it that much better than it was? Or is it just the fact that they can play what they remembered? Because what bothered me about Madden was it was like, seems like I'm paying $70 every year
Sure.
for the exact same game. Then it never looks that much better. There's never anything that new or cool or interesting. And so,
Yeah, it usually takes the next step up at like when the console changes. Like I remember going from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3. I want to say that was like the Eddie George. Maybe it was 1 to 2, but it was Eddie George on the cover. And I remember it's so funny because you look at that now and you're like, oh, this looks terrible. I remember my friend's mom came in and she's like, is this a real game? Or is it like that's how, the graphics back then. Also,
So
you're
funny.
like standard definition TVs back then and all that.
yeah.
But I will say this, the biggest thing about those games is they stopped being able to sell them. So even like the 2014 game, they weren't allowed to sell it anymore because the lawsuit that Ed O'Bannon put out. So you just couldn't play it. And now you can play it. And it also has like the player names, which it didn't used to have. It used to be like, this is linebacker 51 or whatever. And yeah, is it that much better is an interesting question. I did get it, and it's a problem. It's going to be a problem. My wife and I are going to argue about this game at some point. She came in the other day, and I was like, I'm going to go up and work. It is fun. She came into my office where I'm at right now, and I was like, I got to go up and do some work. And I was doing some work, and then I also had on the other screen the NCAA.
Yeah.
And these ladies don't know. They don't understand.
Simulating
Okay?
a few recruitments.
I was just recruiting a couple teenagers, and then also playing NCAA 2025 separate from that. and it's like I know that it's going to be time consuming. That's kind of I was off video games for a while, and then I bought like a Madden. I had bought every Madden from 2001, I believe, until like 2016, and then I took a couple years off, and I was like kind of off video games, and then I had a PlayStation 4, bought a PlayStation 4, and then I was like, maybe that's my last console ever, and then after that, I was like, yeah, I'm not tempted by anything. And then NCAA, then Madden isn't on PS4 anymore, so now I bought an Xbox. I switched to Xbox, which, because you're not a game guy, you're not going to care about, but I'd been a lifelong PlayStation guy, and I bought my first Xbox.
I do care. You know what actually kicked me off of video games? Because every once in a while I would get like a game. Like I love like Red Dead Redemption, or what was another one I played? Like this... God, it was called God of War. I don't know if you ever played that. Just
I've
like stupid games like that, where it's like pretty much, you're just running around killing people or whatever. I love shit like that. And then I stopped because I got like locked out of my PlayStation account. Like they are asking for 2-factor authentication, and I never set it up. So it was.
I don't think it's authentication. I want to make sure.
I swear to God, I'm not drunk. Well, how do you say? What is that word? 2-factor
Authentication.
Authentication.
Yeah, I think so. Or I'm wrong, and I'm just smug asshole.
No, you're right. It's not authentication. I know that. You're right. So anyway, but I never set that up. So it was going to every time I put it in, it was going to a phone number that I didn't have. And so I don't know if someone like hacked the account or whatever, but I was like, I have no way to get this back. And I tried for like a year, and I sent everything in, and then you can't get anyone on the phone.
Yeah.
At PlayStation.
By
So
the way, we've had two different, and we'll see what of this podcast what comes out of the first portion of it. We've had two parts now where an old man, you or I, have said, you can't get anyone on the phone, I can't talk to a human being, and I have perfect control over my alcohol.
But it's so defeating. It's the same thing with like YouTube. It's like, you're dead. So they just lost me. I was like, I'm not going to be a PlayStation guy, I guess, because that's all the games were on that account.
Yeah.
So, and it felt like shitty to have to start over or start a new account. So I was like, all right. And so that was the last not the newest one, but the one before.
Yeah.
Whatever number it was.
But you didn't make the switch to Xbox. You were like, video games as an institution.
I got a Switch to play on, like, because I work cruise ships sometimes. So I got a Switch to bring on those. And I was playing Zelda, which fucking rocks. That game was sick. But then you lose your life playing that. So that's it, though. Other than that... Other than all those games and consoles I mentioned, no video games for me.
Not a game guy at all. Just had every console from up until PS4.
Other than those many
and then
that I mentioned.
Every 1 week a month, I devote 120 hours to Zelda. But other than that, no video games.
And then I go on Reddit and read about people's best Zelda builds. But other than
is that true?
I don't even look for it. You ever go on Reddit?
I hate it. I just started doing it because I was promoting
I think it's the best. I used to be so scared of Reddit. Reddit would scare me because like that's where they're building the bombs.
They're building the bombs. They're planning the
insurrections. I thought it was like 4chan. I thought Reddit was what 4chan actually is. No, it's like way better. I think it's like the only social media left where people are just like, they're sincere. It's the last corner of sincerity on the internet.
Wow.
Because like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's been so polluted by corporations and bots and like racist trolls and everything. But Reddit feels kind of like Craigslist or something. It's still just very sort of like... And the comedy section on there is hilarious because it's so innocent. Like it's just all these new comics who are probably like, 6 months in, asking just hilariously naive questions.
Yeah. I discovered...
it's like, it's sweet,
I've been posting clips to there's a stand-up subreddit and a stand-up comedy
Yeah.
subreddit. These are two separate
Right.
things, so obviously by their names. But one of them you're allowed to post your clips, and the other one you're not, which I found out the hard way because I posted my clip on the
you
wrong
got
one.
slapped.
Yeah, but it is nice for that because you can go on and it's kind of like the way YouTube is, where it's like I get to go put this thing out and let the world decide instead of one dude that works at HBO or whatever. And I'm so far from knowing who that guy is or how to contact him or him taking my call anyway, that
Yeah.
it is nice that you can like, maybe I got to give Reddit a try. I also found out you can get followers on Reddit, which I had no idea about. So apparently there's every time a social media comes around, I'm late to it by years. And Reddit is just another in a long line of those.
I'm not saying that I'm like successful at Reddit or have
Gotcha.
followers or anything. I'm just saying, like, as a consumer, I think it's the last one that I'm actually. Oh, look, Nick, of course, hates Reddit.
Yeah, Nick hates Reddit. He says it's the Walmart
You know what,
people
Nick?
of the internet.
What do you like, Nick?
Nick likes
Eve Mux. You're an Eve Mux fan. What the fuck this is?
he doesn't even know what that is. That's the
Where's-
software that we use to that's the software that up until this week we used to produce
To
the
play
podcast.
music
And next week
in 1 second clips over and over and over.
it was a
again.
nice little remix of some music. I do want to address one thing. He said, "Office ? What happened to the shed where you smoked a cigar with Robert Kelly?" To be clear, not the Robert Kelly that is the child molester who's in prison right now. It's the comedian Robert Kelly, and that was in my very dirty garage. And I'll tell you this story real quick, Andrew, because I think it's a funny comedy story about when you're new to comedy. Because I worked with Robert Kelly over New Year's. We had just moved into our house. My wife had Robert Kelly was the second comedian that I told my wife was pregnant, and I'm not like friends with him.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not like not friends. I'm not friends with him. The other one was like a guy I'm not that close with either, and it felt more okay to tell people I wasn't that close with at the time because it was like really new. And he came to my house and he tried to record like a podcast for his Patreon, and I recorded backup audio, and his audio fucked up. And then he's like, "Yeah, I can't post it." I'm like, "I actually have backup audio." And he's like, "Oh, great, send it." And I was like, "Oh, cool. It'll eventually come." Never came out. That's how bad this podcast was. It just never. I feel like I should release it myself because I have this. Yeah, like yeah. Anyway, I smoked, and then I used to smoke cigarettes. Did you ever smoke cigarettes?
No.
Okay. Cigars for me, I enjoy them, but they are a thing where like when I have 2 in a month or 3 in a month, I can feel the nicotine craving coming back. Like I've reintroduced it to my body, and so I like really drinking. I'm buck wild on, but cigars, that's the real evil. And I smoked a cigar with him that day, and then he was like, "Let's smoke another one." So he smoked. I had like 6 months or a year without a cigar. I go from that to smoking 2 cigars in like 3 hours, and then he brought me a cigar, and we smoked 2 additional cigars that day before the shows. And I smoked 4 cigars in a day with Robert Kelly, New Year's Eve weekend, 2018. And that's what Nick's referring to.
I'll never understand it. I tried, that's always how they get you to, like, sometimes you work with some headliner who loves cigars. I don't know what the comedy cigar connection is. And you don't want to say no because no, I'm cool. Yeah, we're on the road together. Yeah, let's go smoke cigars, and they're awful. I hate them.
I love them so much.
Really, I don't get it all. I hate the smell of them. I hate the smoke. My lungs hate them. Like, I hate everything about them. But then I tried because you're like supposed to like them, and you want to be a guy. It's cooler to be a guy that likes them. It's cooler to be a cigar guy who just like, all right, we'll do some cigars.
I do think there's a
thing.
thing
At weddings, it's celebratory occasions, all that shit. And I went one time. I was opening for Tommy Johnigan in Phoenix.
Oh, fuck you!
And
the greatest comic that doesn't do comedy anymore, basically.
But he was a cigar guy. I don't know if he still is, but he was a cigar guy. So same thing. We're doing the Tempe Improv, and I'm like, oh, he wants to go to a cigar lounge, and it's just this dirty, gross. You're in Phoenix. It's, there's so many beautiful outdoor areas, but you're like inside this gross room.
Sounds amazing.
smoking a cigar, sucking up everybody else's secondhand smoke. I hated it. But then I pretended like, oh yeah, this is great. Oh, it's cool.
I do think there's a thing as a man, as a grown adult man, you need to be able to drink liquor straight and be able to, like, if it's a gin night, you're drinking gin. I know you're very good at this. None of this is you're great at drinking all alcohol. I have no,
I can drink them all. It's just,
but you got to be able to have, like, if people are drinking whiskey, but I think that cigars is maybe your only failing in this, because if people are drinking whiskey, you better be able to drink whiskey. If they're having gin cocktails, drink gin cocktails. Don't be the kind of person that can't go like, oh, actually, I prefer a scotch instead of bourbon. No, drink the fucking bourbon. Be appreciative. Be part of the team. And I feel that way. Cigars are like right in that category to me, where it's like I like them, but I also probably would still smoke them if I didn't, because I would be trying to learn how to like them the same way. Like at a point, I would like not enjoy whiskey straight, and now I can, and it's like I can go to whatever, and like no matter what setting I'm in, I can drink whatever alcohol you put in front of me. I'm saying this like it's a positive that keeps coming off. It's like, oh no, this guy he has no standards. He'll just drink whatever you put in front of him.
Well, I'm the opposite, where I'm like, I think it took me getting to this age and gaining whatever modicum of success in my life, and this, I'm finally confident enough to be like, if someone offers me a cigar, I'm like, man, no. And I don't care what the occasion. Hey, man, I just had a baby. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm not smoking. I don't want it. I don't want to do it.
I've been the guy pressuring
I've tried
people
it.
who don't smoke.
I'm old enough now. I'm just never going to be a cigar guy. And now I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's, fucking Conan or anybody, and I'm trying to kiss their ass. They're like, hey, let's do cigars. I'm good. I'll meet you. I'll meet you after.
I guess I'll rescind my invite for this weekend. My God.
Yeah, do not. If you bring a cigar around me this weekend, I will slap you.
We could have gone to BJ's Bingo and Fife, as Nick Lindsay said. There is a cigar place up there at the top. I've
anything sound worse. What combination? BJ's Bingo and Fife cigar room. Shoot me in the face. Please. Good Lord.
We should make this we got to make this the ad for BJ's Bingo.
In Fife. Oh.
Oh my God!
Remember the Kenmore? There used to be the Kenmore card room in.
I don't remember that.
The Kenmore card room. You could smoke in there, of course. Also a miserable place if you ever go to Kenmore.
When I smoked cigarettes, I remember the last day they allowed, because I was not 21 when they stopped smoking indoors. So the only place we could go to smoke indoors the last day. We did like a big celebratory last day. We went to Fox's, a strip club in Tacoma, and just like chain smoked cigarettes and got lap dances the whole time.
Sounds great. Sounds wonderful.
All right. The way we typically end the podcast, and this is, you can be as good or as bad at this as you want, is we play this game called the home run game. That's all we call it. It's not an exciting name. Basically, I'm going to tell you a player, and
wait a minute. We're ending? Like, we didn't even talk. We haven't barely talked any sports. Mariners, we didn't talk.
Okay,
you don't care? Are they dead?
I don't think they're dead.
Do you want them to make a trade?
I want them to make a modest trade, because Jerry DiPoto shouldn't keep his job, and he's like a lame duck GM.
Oh, really? You think he shouldn't keep his job?
I think he shouldn't keep his job, and I also think, like, I don't think you let the guy that you plan on firing make a big trade, because he's going to just put the next guy even further behind the 8 ball. That's my opinion.
Is that kind of a hot take? Is Mariner? Maybe I'm out of touch, but are Mariner fans like fired DiPoto now?
I think a big chunk of the fan base has been ready to fire him for a couple of years. I'm a big analytics guy, and the thing that I don't like about him is I think that he is a fake analytics guy. Like, he can talk the talk, but he doesn't actually.
Like Zelensky, the last guy.
Zarenzek.
Zarenzek. Yeah, Zelensky. Remember when the president of Ukraine ran the Mariners?
Yeah, Zarenzek had a guy named Tom McNamara who was the scouting director. This is why you brought this up, and now we have 4 hours more of podcast to do.
No. I wanted quick hot takes. That's a great hot take that you think Dipoto should be fired and he shouldn't be allowed to make a big trade.
Yeah.
Because that's why general managers make bad moves when they know they're going to be fired to save their jobs.
Exactly.
And they go, I don't think they should make any trade. I think they know deep down, if they're being honest, we're not good enough to win the World Series.
Fully agree with you.
And keep the young talent you have and build to the one more. No one wants to hear this, but like, how successful have these big splash free agency trades been for us anyway? Just hope you're going to hit on any of these farm guys and hang on to them.
So first off, Nick Lindsay says Mariners aren't going to fire Dipoto if they're in first at the deadline. I think that they're not going to fire him mid-season no matter what. It'll be in the offseason. They're not going to go without a GM. I think if they don't make the playoffs, he gets fired. I think if they do make the playoffs, but they don't make it out of the first round, it's going to be iffy. And then we'll see after that. I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think the team's good enough. I don't think the pitching is as good as everyone thinks it is. It's really helped by this ballpark that also suppresses the Mariners' offense. So it's not actually improving the Mariners' chances of winning all that much. Yeah, I'm like, Zarenzik made some great moves, and he like abandoned all of the things that made those moves great the moment there was like any that they faltered at all. And I feel like Dipoto is a guy who you want to be the spokesman of analytics when it's really like some sweaty dude that looks like me that is really the guy doing the analytics. And I think he's like a politician. He's like the face of analytics when the real people who are doing like advanced analytics stuff as of today are not out in front talking about it the way that he does. He's like using analytics to justify bad moves in a lot of cases, which is not really what they're meant for.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, ultimately I think like I think they probably will sniff the playoffs. I think there's a chance they make the playoffs. I think that there's not really an obvious fit to trade for out there because like you, I don't think they should go trade these young guys, like the really good prospects. I'd be fine with a couple like mid farm system trades. I did a very boring segment on this a couple of weeks ago or months ago now. But like there's a bunch of guys like JD Martinez is out there. And I think the Mets are actually good now, but there's a bunch of teams that, like, if they decide to sell, they usually have a 35-year-old guy on a one-year deal that you could go get for something. And that guy's probably going to produce similarly to what Vlad Guerrero is going to do this year. And I'm worried about a guy like Vlad Guerrero after this year. He's just declining as a player, and he's getting less defensively valuable, and he's, you know, in his mid-20s.
What about this kid on the White Sox? My older brother's
Luis Robert. He's very good. He's had a lot of injury issues, and he's like actually I think probably has defensive value, so he's like not a complete liability in the outfield, but he's just like misses half the season. So he's very young. He's signed for a long time to like a somewhat team-friendly deal. I'd be on board with that. That's probably the one guy who I think is like obviously going to be traded, but he's also the one guy that everybody
wants.
Yeah, and so you're probably going to have to overpay for him. And if you're going to overpay for a guy, I'd like it to be when you think the team has a realistic shot. Not for Jerry Dipoto to keep his job for 3 more years. I want it to be when the team has a shot to win the World Series. And I'm not a believer that the pitching staff is as good as everyone thinks it is either. So
where are you on the Seahawks?
I think the Seahawks are going to be better than. I think the Seahawks are either going to be better than people expect or go like 2-15. I think it's going to be like they're going to win 11 games or 2 games, and I don't think it's going to be very much in between. I think Mike McDonald's really exciting, and are you a Huskies fan?
Yeah, I am, but not as much as I am a Seahawks fan. But yes.
So the offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb is. I think that dude and Mike.
I'm
McDonald,
more excited. Yeah, that's the irony is. When we got waxed by Baltimore during the season, I remember thinking they kept cutting over to Mike McDonald because we were just being dominated, you know. And I kept thinking, like, man, how great. Because never in a million years would I think they were going to fire Pete Carroll. But then I kept thinking, like, well, maybe he'll retire. and then we could get this guy because he was like young and just over there looking all mean, and we were being shut out. We just looked helpless against the Baltimore. And then we got him. I couldn't believe we got him. I was like, this is so exciting. But now when I look at it on paper, I'm like, man, we have no linebackers. We have the edge play is still like very questionable. The safeties are huge question marks now.
So here's what I'll say about that.
So I'm like, the offense is what excites me. I'm like, I think Geno's good. I'm way more of a Geno guy than everybody else I know.
Sure.
And then if the O-line plays just even like half as good they did 2 years ago compared to last year when they fell apart, like I think the offense with this Brian Grubb dude, I think they're going to be sick.
Yeah.
And I think we'll just it could be like Kurt Warner, St. Louis, you know what I mean? When Mike Marks shows up and just like takes the league by storm. I kind of feel like those sort of vibes for Geno this year, but we'll see.
There's a linebacker named Terrell Dodson who they signed, and Pro Football Focus, and I don't know how familiar.
Yeah,
you
are. I know this guy, but the PFF score is way off on it. I mean, it's like the PFF can be all over the place. Of course I'm optimistic. I hope
Sure.
he's good. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as his PFF score.
I think the PFF, you can gripe with it, and I think there's reasons to not like it sometimes. I think it's the best. It's like the best we have for something that's like an objective measure of someone's performance.
But
but it's also like it's better than, I mean, these guys that are like professional talent evaluators on TV. Mel Kiper misses shit all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not even like that's a guy who's projecting college players into a different game, essentially. I think Terrell Dodson's has a chance to be, but that's what I'm saying. They made a bunch of high variability moves. Mike McDonald is not an experienced coach. He's very young. Ryan Grubb never coached in the pros before. Yeah. A bunch of defensive players that are like high risk. The safeties they brought in, both linebackers, Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson. These are guys who, any one of those guys could be a star. They could also be a guy who's a roster liability in week 3 and on. Like I think there's a lot of variability, and I think it's gonna be very exciting. I have some money on the Seahawks because I think they were like 3,600 to 1 to win the NFC, and I think they're gonna be a better than average NFC team. I think they're gonna flirt with the playoffs. If I was gonna guess between those two things, do I think 11 wins or 2 wins? I think 11 is way more likely.
Their over under is like 7, I think.
Yeah, I would take the over on that.
I've heard a lot of like sharps taking the over on the Seahawks just because I think people just don't like nationally, and if you're not like a real junkie, people just don't like Geno.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to a lot of times. And then so they're like, oh, Seahawks minus Pete Carroll, like with no real quarterback. And then they go, 7 wins, 6 wins,
Yeah.
And I don't think they understand. Like, no, he's like top 10. He's like a top 10 quarterback with like weapons. So if they get any protection at all, he's going to be good.
And Pete Carroll was
bad
as a coach. Yeah.
He was very bad. He was like no longer a good game manager. He was no longer good coaching defense.
Yeah.
And then he was no longer, like, if you say then what's his best trait, like motivation or sort of just organizational control, he'd kind of lost that too. So it was like there was no reason to keep him around, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the beauty of him as a coach was his ability to kind of toe the line between like giving guys too much freedom and just enough freedom to like really excel. And we saw that. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to them, but like all the podcasts of former players from the Super Bowl winning team, and then the guys that stuck around for the loss to the Patriots, all those guys to a person have said like, yeah, that crushed us. Like that, not running Marshawn, not winning that game, losing in such heartbreaking fashion, it ruined the team. It blew the team up.
Yeah.
And that's like, he got to ride on that for a long time. But yeah, I'm excited about him. I'm not unqualified excitement. I'm very excited. I think Mike McDonald's going to be a good coach.
I talk myself into it every year.
I don't. I'm not a natural optimist when it comes to sports.
Oh, okay.
And I love Ryan Grubb. That would have been. I wanted him to be the Huskies head coach. I was like, when it seemed like he was going to go to Alabama, I was very sad. I did not want. And then the rumor was it was going to be like Dan Quinn and Chip Kelly here. Was like, ugh. I could not have talked myself into liking that. I don't think. Yeah, I'm stoked for the Seahawks season. I think they're going to be good. Yeah, that's
okay. Now we're doing the mountain.
The home run game, and we can do this. You can come on this podcast again, Andrew. This is just the first time I wanted to talk about this norm.
Force you to
no, you're good. I don't want you to not feel like you got everything out of it. Yeah, you're good. You're good. And I very much enjoyed it. I like you. It sounds like we're really doing the intervention now. So what we do is basically you, and we're going to do it just you this week. I did it with Andrew Rivers a couple weeks ago also. I'm going to tell you a former Mariner, and you guess how many home runs he hit. And you can walk through your thought process. You're welcome to do it. Okay. And the first guy I'm bringing up is Jay Buhner. How many home runs he hit in his career, not just with the Mariners, his career home run totals.
Whole career?
Yeah, and I'll give you a little bit. Normally, so my co-host Alex and I, at the beginning of this game, we would give each other some detail, and sometimes that gives you too much information. But what I'll tell you is, since you're new to this game, he only played 2 seasons with anybody but the Mariners, and it was only 99 games with the Yankees.
He had virtually no post-Mariners career, I feel like.
Zero. He didn't play for any. He might have been in spring training with the team, but 2001 was his last year, and he played 19 games, 53 plate appearances.
And he famously came from the Yankees, but again, they didn't know what they had when they traded him. So you're right. You can kind of discount any non-Mariners. I'm gonna say probably played for us. So 2001, 90. Say maybe got on the team 91, 92. 9 times 20. I'm gonna say 185 home runs.
Okay, so you a couple things I'm gonna tell you. This is the way we do it every time. I'm not chastising you. We just give you some detail about Jay Buhner's career. He makes his Mariners debut in 1988. That's when the trade, the trade that was made famous by Seinfeld. I told you 2001, which is actually more information than we normally give, but then you use that to fuck yourself on the context. He had 3 straight seasons with 40-plus home runs. He had 40 in 95, 44 in 96, and 40 again in 97.
That's, again, like, and I'm kind of got 2020's brain about home runs. Like, if a guy hit 40 home runs now, we'd build a statue to him.
Especially in Seattle,
And I forgot, like, how many fucking home runs people used to hit. But, okay, I know I'm way low, but keep going.
Yeah, so he those 3 seasons, he's 5th in the MVP voting in 95, 17th in the MVP voting in 96, and makes his only career All-Star game, which because of how good those Mariners teams were, I would have guessed he made more All-Star games than that. And he won a Gold Glove in 96, and then he was 19th in the MVP voting in 97. He ends his career with 310 home runs, which Nick Lindsay is. You should close the comments, by the way, on your side, Andrew, so that you don't give it away. But he guessed 345, so he's significantly closer than you. He's crushing you in this game. I'll give you 2 more. The next one is beloved Mariner, Hall of Famer, many-time All-Star, Mariner for life, never played for another team, Edgar Martinez.
Yeah. All right, well, it has to be more than Jay Buhner. But, like, also, I don't remember him getting anywhere close to, like, those big... Like, there was no, like, the huge milestones, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say 401.
So this is I didn't know this when I picked these 2 names. He has 309 home runs. He has 1 less than Jay Buhner, almost the exact same. But yeah, you're basically right. So the interesting thing about Edgar, of course, is he doesn't play a full season until he's 27 years old. And then he's got a couple shortened seasons, like 93, he only plays 42 games. 94, he's either injured or it's the strike that shortens part of his season, I imagine, also. And then 95 is when he really, he turns it on. He was good before that. 95... leads the league in doubles in batting average, in on-base percentage, in runs scored, in OPS, in OPS plus. He's third in the MVP voting. He's a guy that kind of he was like one of the earliest, not the first, but one of the earliest like DH only players at that point. But you remember what back then the Mariners would like, because interleague play started I think 98, and they would have him play first base, and you'd be like, just don't fuck those knees up, please. Yeah. So
but you had to have him in the lineup. Like there's just no way to not have him in your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely had to have him in the lineup. There was no getting around it. Yeah. All right. Last one, and it's from that same Mariners team. And let's see let's take a look at this guy real quick and get a little information on this. I can't believe he played this long. Actually, played from 92 to 2005. A guy that plays again like early career trade to the Mariners, and then plays the rest of his career there. Came from Cincinnati. Do you have a guess who I'm talking about?
From Cincinnati. From 92?
He plays his first season in Cincinnati in 92. First season as a Mariner is 94.
I was going to say Russ Davis, but that's not. He didn't play that long.
Russ Davis is on this like a list of somebody's getting that question at some point. I love Russ Davis. I'm a big Russ Davis believer. It's Dan Wilson.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. My mom, I knew like Cincinnati sounded so familiar. My mom, when he first got traded to the Mariners, he was at a grocery store signing autographs, but he hadn't played a season with the Mariners yet. He was just like the Mariners. This guy plays for the Mariners. Trust us. I know you've never heard of him, but just believe us. Here's this guy, and he plays for the Mariners. And no one was in line to get his autograph. He was just sitting there, and nobody cared. Nobody wanted his. So my mom got us Dan Wilson autographs because she felt bad for the guy. She was like, okay, well, here, you can. My boys will like this. So we have autographed Dan Wilson something. So how many career home runs?
My favorite thing about that is I really love that story. And outside of Seattle or like the Seattle fan base, people would be like, "We don't know who Dan Wilson is."
No,
like,
we still don't know who he is. Yeah, no, I know. Mr. Mariner. No, that's Alvin Williams. Mr. Mariner.
Yeah, that is Alvin Davis.
Okay. How many home runs for Dan Wilson? I don't remember him ever hitting. More than like, there's no way he had ever had more than like 25 in a season. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to say 165.
All right. So Dan Wilson, one-time All-Star, plays 92 to 2005. His highest home run total in a season is 18.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I like that.
He hits double digits 3 times. I wonder if you looked at he's career 691 OPS, but he had a couple years there, 90, 95, 96, 97, where he was like a 750-ish the whole time OPS. And is that like leading the Mariners right now? Like
I know, isn't
Dan
that
Wilson,
sad?
This like soft hitting catcher.
You know who I was thinking about would be our best player right now, our best position player hitter right now? Carlos Guillen. Remember Carlos Guillen?
Dude.
Like if we had Carlos Guillen, he would be batting third. He would be like our all-star.
Dude,
he'd be like the best player on the team.
He was underrated for his time. Was that I think it was a Pat Gillick trade, right? It was him for
long counts.
Ramon Martinez.
That's what I remember.
Let's see. We're testing my knowledge here. I think it was for Ramon Martinez. He got traded to Detroit, and Ramon Martinez, the prevailing thought was Carlos Guillen is a bad influence on Freddie Garcia at the time, I believe. Like they drink too much and have too much fun together. Yeah. And I believe he goes to Detroit for Ramon Martinez, which is the biggest slap in the face of that. Not Ramon Martinez. Ramon Perret. Maybe it is Ramon. Anyways, that dude, he's like a glove-only shortstop, ends up back in Detroit playing better than he played in Seattle a couple years later. And let's see, I'm going to the baseball
Carlos
reference.
Carlos Guillen had good years for the Tigers after that.
Oh, Ramon Santiago.
Oh, okay.
That's who it was. Ramon Santiago. Yeah, he was like a defense only. No, Carlos Guillen was great in Seattle and better in Detroit. He was great. He was he got fucked. He was, first off, he had to follow Alex Rodriguez, which is not fair to him. He also he came over in one of the best trades in so the Randy Johnson trade was Freddie Garcia, Carlos Guillen, and John Halama. And Halama even pitched a handful of
Halama was great.
Of what did he pitch? 4 seasons in Seattle and had a couple of years that were like pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a great trade for a guy who's on an expiring deal. But Dan Wilson, so All-Star in 96. By the way, 285, 330, 444 triple slash line. Still not at that time. That would be an All-Star catcher now. And he did make the All-Star game, but it was a sub-average OPS plus, but 18 home runs that year. That was that year. Ends his career with 88 home runs.
I was way off again.
I think arguably the worst performance ever in this game. No, Alex and I have both missed by over 100 at points this year.
You could have gone like over under or something, and then
that was the original game.
That
was the original game, but it became so easy that we had to.
Well, then you're setting the number wrong if it's easy.
Yeah. You have a gambling problem and a drinking problem. We've learned about mostly Andrew Slater's addiction.
And apparently a math problem.
Go see Andrew this weekend at Tacoma Comedy Club, 6th and Proctor location. Yeah, great club, fun space. Andrew's a great comic. I'm going to be doing something at the big club. I'm not performing on the show. It's a weird deal. But in between shows, if you want to pop in, I'm sure they'd let you come say hi.
Yeah, for sure.
There's like a weird event there on Saturday that I'm moderating the Q&A. They were like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, I would love to do comedy on a Saturday."
Q&A for who?
I can't remember.
Well, you're some fucking moderator.
I know it's bad. It's Andrew Callahan.
I don't know who that is. I'm so bad now.
I definitely know who he is. Of course I know who he is, Andrew. Of course it wasn't just because they were paying me money that I'd still agree to do it. Look at this adorable Andrew Slater photo right on the front page.
They used a headshot, and I mean, when I say so old, and then it's really bad because you're like, oh, that's just like the last time you guys worked me. That's really embarrassing. They had to open up a smaller club before they booked me again. Like, we're working on it, Andrew. We'll bring you back. We're just trying to build a baby club for you.
If we can find a room small enough, you can come back to Tacoma, Washington.
If this doesn't go well, the tiny house, like those little homeless villages they build, that's where we're playing next.
Andrew Slater on Instagram and the Cavalry Podcast. By the way, I was going to say this at the time, but then we started having the music issue. I can't believe you guys don't get flagged. You know, your co-host Johnny Beaner is one of the first comics I saw at Tacoma Comedy Club, and that last name, you got to be. Can you even say that on YouTube? Did we just get kicked off YouTube?
Johnny Beaner has a tiny wiener. This is a big joke.
All right, I'm going to play this.
No,
music
Johnny's the best. Johnny's a very, very, very funny guy. If anybody listening to this, he's better comic than me, unfortunately. I hate to admit it, but
you know what's so funny is I fucking have this intro song. Normally I play it at the end, but I deleted it from the thing, so we gotta go out on some stock.
Do you want me to sing?
Yeah, please sing the national anthem if you would.
No, I'm not following that, lady. All right, see you, Casey.
Bye. Oh, and now there's no music at all. Hold on. We gotta get the volume up. There we go. That's what we needed. All right.
So professional.
Hi. Thanks, Andrew.